Okay, welcome everyone. We are officially live on YouTube. This is the February 4th, is that right? Outreach meeting. As I warned people before I turned on the camera, if you wish, we are recording. If you wish to be, don't wish to be recorded, you can hide your camera and or mute yourself. However, we do welcome people to participate during our live meetings with their cameras on and talking if they so choose. Let's go ahead and start with, I volunteered to help with the outreach meetings a little bit more actively here going forward. So that's why it's not unusual, but I'm going to be doing maybe more of that. Let's go ahead and do our introductions. Same thing as usual, just to name something about what's going on in your life or what you're working on in Backdrop, and then pass it on to the next person. I'll go ahead. My name is Tim Erickson. I'm coming to you from Deerwood, Minnesota. I have been super busy this week, so I haven't had as much time on Backdrop. Lots of client work this week, so that's been keeping me busy. Although we got some exciting outreach stuff coming up, so looking forward to the meeting today. We'll talk about it later. Sarvashri.
Yeah, my name is Sarvashri, and I am more interested in newbies coming into Backdrop, getting people started, developing an attractive framework for people to get involved in Backdrop. And I sent Tim and Jen my idea today of how we can do that. And maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that a little bit more. I've mentioned it before. I wrote it down so it would be a little more coherent. And, so trying to get people better trained and to have some standard websites that people could just download, some distributions that people could just download to be started in particular areas, the most common uses of websites. So we can talk about that a little bit. I'm in North Carolina.
Okay. And who's next?
I might as go as well. So my name is Greg. I'm joining from Greece, usually in Australia though. Just joining to help however I can and see how things are going. Jen, I think you didn't go.
I'm Jen Lampton, joining from Oakland, California. I am excited to hear what Tim has to share with us today. Let's see. Luke?
Hi, I'm Luke McCormick in San Ramon, California. I'm also at the edge of my seat wondering what Tim is going to say. I
oversold it.
I have been mismanaging a initiative to try to make Backdrop easier to use that I'm trying to bring to a close and just sort of declare where we happen to be where we wanted to be and call it a day. But actually most of what's left falls under what Sarvashri was talking about in terms of documentation examples. So my aspirations are to work for Sarvashri, and we'll see how that works out. And Phil.
Hey, Phil Ward out of Wichita, Kansas. Don't have anything specific to talk about today, just kind of seeing what the general discussion looks like. And personally, I'd love to see us get some movement going over there on the Drupal upgrade status for Drupal 7. But if that doesn't come up today, then no worries. So who do we got left here? Is that everybody? I think that's everybody.
Okay, it is good. We have a good sized group today. So so I'd like to try and focus, start out the meeting and really kind of focus on the to-do action items that we can get out of the way. In terms of like the outreach stuff, I'm thinking mostly about like Backdrop Live and the Backdrop Meetings website, both of which Jen and Luke were involved in the discussion. So I'm not sure what they expect me to announce. It wasn't that I have any big secret plans or anything. I just mean that there's a lot of action going on. Also, we got a newsletter out this week, thanks to BW Panda, which is a huge step forward. And not only did we get one out, but we have a commitment to sort of help us keep us on that path on a monthly basis. So the
I have
prospect,
that.
go ahead.
So that newsletter was supposed to contain information about the blog post for Contrib people, but we were so distracted by the fact that we were having problems getting the newsletter out that I don't think got updated. So if anybody hears anybody wondering if they can have more access to a Contrib repository, please encourage them to create an issue in the issue queue. I think if we can find other ways to promote this, like maybe tweet about it again in a week or so, or any other avenue where we can broadcast that information, that might be, I don't know if it's important enough to go on the dashboard. But yeah, something we need to let everybody know about is that they can have whatever permissions they want on their Contrib repositories.
Yeah, good. One of the things I want to do more actively at the beginning is actually write down, say, tweet ideas, dashboard announcements. I don't know if this is exactly what we had in mind for the dashboard, but I think it certainly could fit there. And I think it's important to keep that dashboard fresh if people are going to use it. And while we're talking about the dashboard, well, let's come back to that in a second. So anyways, so I think the combination of the Backdrop Live, we'll get an update from Jen in a minute about the website for that. The newsletter, we've got a few things in progress outreach wise. So let's keep that momentum going. On sort of going through there, we have things to do. These are the things we're working on. Scheduling tweets. So I'd say the last week has been fairly average in terms of we have been getting some stuff out on Twitter. Any feedback, I always appreciate it on what we are putting out, but more so, does anybody have any ideas for things that we should be tweeting about this week? We got the change in Contrib policy. Come on, let's rack our brains.
If we get the Backdrop events site up, then we should encourage people to start registering for Backdrop Live.
Right. Announce event site when ready. We have tweeted a little bit about the survey. Well, in the survey, I don't know if that's really an outreach thing. It's had a small outreach component to it, just in it's something for us to talk about, but
it's an in-reach thing.
It's mostly an in-reach thing, yeah. We have, but we have, if anybody's not sure, we have tweeted about that a little bit. Anything else that's going on? Okay. Facebook posts, the same things could be going on Facebook. Luke, you keep promising to help with Facebook. I think I might have posted about the survey on once on Facebook, which is probably our only Facebook post in the last few months.
No. Hey, look. What should I do again? I'll do it, but I totally was not tracking that.
Do you use Twitter at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well,
I can get stuff from Twitter if you want, and like
you have right. That's what my point was going to be. Was that if you volunteered in the past to sort of help with Facebook a little bit, and I think you have access to post as Backdrop, and if those two things are still the case, then you could look at the Twitter feed and see what we're tweeting about. And
I'll commit to finding out. I'll try to post stuff. Let's see if it works.
Blog posts. Do we have any? We still got that one scheduled from a contributor, don't we, Jen?
I think it went live on Monday.
Okay.
But we do have a backlog of PMC issues that are tag needs blog posts.
Right.
So I had on my to-do list when I have free time to write one. So I wrote one last week when I had free time, which was great, or 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was. But I also would like to encourage anyone else not that our PMC members have a lot of free time, but anyone on the PMC who has free time could go through and look at that list of tags and start drafting blog posts for things.
Okay.
It'll be a good source of content.
You know what? I'm going to tweet about we need blog post writers.
So be careful with that, because
Yeah, I
I
know.
get about 2 emails every day from people who are offering to pay us for backlinks to other websites.
Right.
I'm not sure that should be a public broadcast, because we're probably going to get a lot
Well,
more of those
okay.
and a lot
It
less
has
good content.
it has to be done delicately.
Yes.
That we're looking for members of the community to post, to participate in our blog or something like that. I don't know. I think there's a way to ask that. But yes, there is a difference. There is a difference between that kind of content. And in fact, why don't I put this on the agenda to come back to the blog in a minute to talk a little bit about that, because it came up with this last post. It was like the role of sort of guest writers and how to make those decisions. Anyways, right now I'm looking. Go ahead.
Where's the blog, or are you talking about Twitter or what?
We're talking about the blog right now on backdropcms.org.
Okay.
Okay. The newsletter. So, well, we just got off an issue. I believe that was great in theory. Actually, it didn't go out till Monday, so it was probably the first of February, right? Peter had been shooting for like the last week of the month, but I think last week of the month, first week of the next month. So we got a couple of weeks, but we should be thinking about content. And, if we can get, well, this isn't going to be a good month for Peter, because congratulations to Peter on a baby. So I imagine he's going to be pretty busy, but we could help him out by getting some content ready, so we're not crushing at the last minute. Event stuff. We had a meeting on Backdrop Live last week. We have another one coming up this Friday. On the agenda for Backdrop Live meeting this week is going to be a venue search. We're going to look at some of the, if I'm correct, we're going to look at whether or not we want to use Zoom or Jitsi, do a little bit of experimentation on how we want to use them for Backdrop Live this year. Any progress on the website, Jen? The event?
Yes. Let's see. I need to push the database up to the server. I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
I have a tab open. No.
So the big priority. Go ahead.
Let me do that today. I'm not sure I can do it during this meeting. I'll do it after the next meeting.
Sure.
And at least we can get more eyes on it.
Okay. Our priority right now for the Backdrop Live is just getting the site live so we can do registrations. For those who weren't in the meeting last week, we plan to do, last time we used Eventbrite, and this time we think we're going to be able to manage our own registrations directly on our site. So we want to get that live and get people registering is sort of the first priority. The other thing, though, that has come up is, if possible, and I don't want to put too much pressure on Jen, I scheduled 2 upcoming virtual user groups prior to the meeting, and we might be able to promote those on the event site too, if it's ready, but that's not critical. But having 2 virtual user groups on the agenda is also a nice outreach thing.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there's a bunch of stuff going on. And in fact, we should, well, I'll come back to that. The dashboard. So what should be on the dashboard? We could post about Contrib modules, but is there anything else, any other announcements or things that people think should be on the dashboard? I feel like it's got a little, I posted something about the newsletter being available on the dashboard, so we have at least some fresh content there. I think the dashboard announcements are going to be only as effective as we keep them fresh and interesting. Otherwise, people will just tune them out. So we have to work a little harder. I have been, I'd give myself about a C plus for the last 6 months, and that sometimes it goes too long, but then I get some stuff up for a while. Okay, well, keep thinking about all of those things, and let us know. We've got, so the next part of the agenda is we got to look at the agenda. It's things I think we primarily already talked about. Are there any other external mentions that anybody's aware of? Oh, we should mention Matthias mentioned a print publication coming out in Slack today with an article about Backdrop. And so thanks to Matthias for whatever role he played in that. I think he wrote it. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he wrote an extensive article.
Okay. So it looks like websiteboosting.com.
Yeah, it's not an online article, though. It only comes out in printed form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
And we should mention that it's in the German language. So.
Well, that's going to be something we can tweet and Facebook about.
Yep.
These are the kinds of ideas we're looking for, guys.
I think actually non-English content makes us look good. It gives us a pretty cosmopolitan appeal. So
we've got
that shouldn't slow us down in like pointing to that at all.
Nope. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job at retweeting and promoting and we should make a regular mention of the German group that's been doing German content. I think they had another of their weekly module Mondays this week, and that has been really great to see all of that content out there. Return to advertising for Backdrop. Okay, I don't know if we have anybody here that would have anything to report on that. I do go out, and I think Gregory does from time to time, and just sort of Google Backdrop to see if there's anybody's talking about us.
Yeah, whatever comes up in the Google search results that I have not visited before or has a newer date. Recently, I think the past year, Google has added a small snippet that sort of like shows the publication date of the results that brings you. That helps.
Okay. I think we already talked about tweets and Facebook. The documentation initiative, informal initiative at this stage. We need to get this on the agenda for the PMC, but that's somewhat of a formality because the work can happen. Anyways, is there anything happened in the last 2 weeks on documentation?
Yeah, other than that, the creation of the site, no.
Okay.
So we've created the site. It redirects from api.backdropcms.org to the docs. I think what remains to be done is to import the documentation nodes from the main site into that. Jen said that she'll find time to do that at some point. And then I guess we have some work to do to reorganize things and create sections for developers versus, the simple user guide. I mean, the API versus, the actual end user guide.
Sure. And again, so Peter is officially the lead on this initiative, and he has had a big personal development in his life that might keep him busy for a week or two. So we might not expect a lot of progress in the very short term, but I expect to see that moving in the near future. And certainly there's plenty to be done even while Peter's busy. I don't think we have anything new on the video front. It's always on my list of things to do when I get a chance. But certainly we do have a number of topics. If anybody is out there able to make some instructional videos about YouTube, ping us about ideas. We have ideas, things that we'd love to see made. So we talked a little bit about events and meetups. I mentioned I scheduled 2 meetups or virtual user groups. I'm going to get the dates here. They're listed on backdropcms.org. If anybody's watching the video, if you go to the events section, and we're doing on February 16th, we're doing a multilingual backdrop. And again, Matthias has offered to show us some of what he's done on an existing site. He has an upcoming project. It sounds like 1 or 2 of our other European participants that have done some multilingual stuff will be there to sort of help with the discussion. We are still open if anybody else has real experience with multilingual and would like to sort of help lead this discussion, please let us know. But I think we have some knowledgeable people that'll be there, and we can at the very minimum have a discussion and kind of explore some of the multilingual features in Backdrop. And then on March 2nd, we're going to do a discussion about command line tools. Check the website for the times on these. They're not all at the same time because, for example, I wanted to specifically accommodate Peter for the command line tools because he's been doing a lot of work on Brush. So we changed the time a bit for that session. Anything else about, well, should we talk a little bit more about Backdrop Live? We don't need to get into the weeds because we're doing that at a special meeting tomorrow, but we'll just remind folks the date is the 12th, the March 12th. We're looking at a 24-hour event. So to accommodate multiple time zones, a lot like last time, but it'll be a little bit shorter. Those are the big takeaways. We hope to have registration open soon.
Can you give a
go ahead.
Real quick synopsis on what the Backdrop Live is for anybody watching?
Sure. We had our first Backdrop Live in September. It was like a 2-day unconference camp, online, all virtual, mostly discussion based, where people told us what they wanted to talk about. We scheduled sessions and facilitated them, and a lot of peer-to-peer sharing about Backdrop. We had over 50 people register, and it went pretty well. We've decided we're going to try to do some event like this, although on a slightly smaller scale, with each release. So the next one is this one coming up on March 12th. We'll do another one this summer, and then maybe again a 2-day one in the fall. So that's sort of it on a high level. We did it. The one of the big things is we do it sort of 3 hours on, 3 hours off for a full 24 hours to accommodate as many time zones as we can to make it really an international event. So people can sort of join in at different times of the day and participate. Does that seem like a good quick description, Phil?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I want to feedback on that because you know, having been recently reminded of my job of promoting things on the Facebook channel, it strikes me that that's the kind of stuff that I want to promote. That I now have suddenly this feeling of putting posts like, hey, save the date. Here's what we know about so far. Here's the things. It's worldwide. Like those things that you just said there.
Good.
All that is public and relatively stable, and we should start seeding the ground with that kind of thing.
Agree 100%. Thank you. So we are having, so the meeting tomorrow is at 2:30 Pacific time. I don't have translations for everybody. I know that's 4:30 my time. Anybody is welcome to come. The agenda for tomorrow is, again, talking about the tools we'll be using. So yeah, and getting an update, I hope, on the website. So
is there homework for that meeting? Is there pre-work that would be useful to
It's
do?
It's a good point, Luke, because it would be helpful. I don't know how to define it enough for someone else to do it. Although anybody that's more, I think, if nothing else, I'd like to try and start a half hour early before the meeting officially starts to sort of start to set up or try the idea. We're going to be experimenting a bit with like the idea of using a single. Last time we had 3 different accounts with 3 different meeting rooms going for Backdrop Live, and this year we're looking at using a single. The idea of using a single event meeting, but having breakout rooms and doing each session in a breakout room. That way, everybody sort of enters in the same place, and there will be a little setup required to make that work, I think, tomorrow. So if anybody has time and wants to prepare that a bit in advance. We also talked about experimenting a little bit with Jitsi tomorrow to see how we might accomplish our goals with Jitsi. And so thinking about what that might look like and what configuration we could do in advance to test it would be good.
I was looking for the announcement of Backdrop Live for March 12th. I didn't see it on the blog.
Well,
Posted anywhere?
this would be a great topic for the blog. It's not on the blog yet. Where it is right now is on events. If you go to the events tab on Backdrop, which is under
Okay.
news, right? So you got blog, meeting, mentions, and events. Yep. So
I think how it happens is we usually do blog posts after the event. Someone
Yeah.
writes. Yeah.
I
Is
think
it all day?
right.
Sorry?
It would be totally appropriate though to do a blog post now that talks about what our plans are, save the date. I mean, although a lot of that can be accomplished just in the event note itself, but a blog post could talk a little bit more about process and encourage people to get involved.
Is that an all-day event? What are the times on
It's as I was just describing, it's a 24-hour, it'll happen over 24 hours. We're planning to start at 6 a.m. Pacific time and then go till on a Friday and go till a little later than 6, I think like 9 a.m. Pacific time. And it will not be continuous. It's like 3 hours on and then 3-hour breaks. And the expectation, right? The expectation is that nobody's going to participate in all the sessions, but we wanted to have some content during all of the time zones. So the goal is that there'll be something going on around the clock, but that people will sort of participate when it's convenient for them. Does that make sense, Sarvashri?
Yeah, so 9 a.m. Eastern time.
Yes.
And then with breaks.
On Friday through probably 9 a.m. or up till about noon, I think, on Saturday on Eastern time.
And 3-hour blocks.
Yeah.
So it strikes me, in the same way that having, non-English content gives us a certain gravitas that I think is advantageous. I feel like the fact that we've scheduled this to be friendly worldwide is something that we do because we're being polite, but can sort of get across a message that might be worth packaging to I think actually DrupalCon's calling itself worldwide. I think maybe getting the word like worldwide in there and sort of emphasizing the multi-time zone continuous thing might be an angle. We're an outreach meeting right now. Like what kind of messages can sell?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thought is besides the German-speaking community, which is really active, we have quite a few members in the regulars in the community, I should say. There's also the Spanish-speaking community, and that's Latin America and Europe as well. Although I haven't seen people like OP and the rest in a while, in a few months, maybe reaching out to those guys and see if we can trigger equivalent sort of like activities as a dedicated site for language speaking people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
did have
it-
sessions in Spanish and German and Bulgarian at our last Backdrop Live.
Yeah.
Bulgarian. Is that what you said? I was going to ask what the other language you said there before German, Spanish was. Bulgarian?
Bulgarian, yeah.
And Australian.
There was only one speaker and one or two people at the Bulgarian session, but the fact that it happened, and the fact
Still
that-
counts.
the fact that we got anybody besides the initiator, we weren't sure anybody else would show up, and at least one person heard about it and showed up, so that was great.
Sweet.
Yeah, and when it comes to Australia, which is sort of like an odd time zone, Peter is physically there, and in the future, I'm supposed to be there as well. But if we manage to grow that community, maybe we, I mean, it's hard to accommodate all time zones, so maybe we can host events that, you know, are favorable to that time zone.
Okay. Well, okay. So anything else on Backdrop Live? Okay. Let me ask the question, because the next thing on our official agenda here is our own website. And I think I'm going to bring this up in the dev meeting, that it's time for another infrastructure week. So there's certainly, well, I consider it to be an outreach problem. We have a major problem with contrib modules right now being unfindable on the website and just and difficult to download. And I think this is a serious outreach issue because people are coming to see what modules are available, and the modules they're searching for, one, aren't showing up even if you search for them directly. And even if they do show up, the download link is broken. And so this is something that I think needs urgent attention. What?
This search thing is new. I feel like we fix this like every 3 months.
Yeah, I thought it was fixed.
Well, no. I mean, it's been reported several times over the last few weeks, so it's not new like in the last few days.
Maybe
But
we
I-
had a creation or something.
But new since the last time we fixed it.
Well, yeah, probably, because I do
Yeah.
think you're right. I think it was fixed once, although it may have gotten worse, because I mean, right now, if you search for some modules by their entire full name, they don't show up.
Yeah, I think that was the original problem
Okay.
we had, and then we switched it, back recently.
Okay.
But the things we're testing for when we switch it back and forth are probably different than the issues that we're coming up with. So every time someone finds a module that we can't find, we should document it in the issue so that the next time we go to change it, we can test with that one. Because last time I think we only tested with web form, because that was when you searched for its name and it didn't show up, and it
Okay.
worked. And so if there's something else we're not, like, we need to be able to, when we make a change, make sure we're not breaking it again.
I'm pretty sure I listed several examples in the issue in the last
Okay.
few days, but I'll
That's
double
great.
check. I'll double check and I'll maybe add a few more if I get a chance.
Okay.
No.
Is
Yeah.
the search routine looking for an exact match?
I'm
So
sorry.
we're searching.
Is the search routine searching for an exact match?
Well,
it
it's
should
not.
have-
Go ahead, Jen. You go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was going to say what I think we're doing is well, actually, I'm not sure. But at one point, I know we searched both the title and the body field. But I think we might have switched back to use core search, which maybe doesn't search the title field. But I don't remember for sure. It might have gone the other way around. But we've tried both, and neither one of them has worked consistently.
And I'm just going to mention, I'm not even 100% sure if this is solely a search problem, because the other problem is that the download link is not showing up on most of our modules. So if you actually get to the page, there's no download link. And I'm wondering if that isn't, the fact that you can't download them isn't affecting them showing up in search.
Huh.
I'm not sure if there's any that are showing up in search that are missing the download link, but anyways.
So doing a real quick check on this to see what I can come up with. It seems like if you add more than one word, that's when it chokes. So right now, when I go to the modules page, it gives a list of, I don't know, some recommended modules. One of them is user prune, user space prune. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I type in prune, Prune, it comes up user prune. If I type user space prune, it doesn't find anything. And I think that's kind of where the disconnect is. So multiple words is not triggering.
Yeah.
So maybe you could put an instruction there in the time being that search single word only for now or something, so that they could find it at least. Until
Well, sure. Well, I mean, it would be better if we could just solve this problem quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe make a multiple search that searches for each word automatically.
Right. Anyways, we had successfully, I mean, I hopefully we get this problem solved really quickly, but I was considering declaring infrastructure week again to solve this and deal with some other, because we've got a number of infrastructure things going. And infrastructure week was just, we did this a little over a year ago, I think, where we declared a week. We had two in-person days, and we just tried to draw people's attention that are contributors to Backdrop to focusing on problems with our infrastructure sites, with our backdrop.org, with the forum. We have a real backlog of issues that are things that could be improving that don't always get the attention they deserve. So infrastructure week's just a chance to kind of focus on that.
The survey ends tomorrow that you put out?
No, I threw out the 15th. Originally, the plan was to run it through the 15th. Originally, people could quit submitting. People have the option to add issues to the survey. And originally that was going to end on the 1st, but I extended it to the 5th because we didn't even get the newsletter out until the 1st. So up until tomorrow, you can still add items to the survey, but then you can continue to new people can participate, or people can change their preferences through the 15th. So
I looked at it, but I don't have enough background to make
mean,
intelligent recommendation.
And that's fair. I mean, I've questioned, I think it's primarily targeted at people who are kind of familiar with the issue queue. If we did this again, I'd like to make it more friendly to people who don't possess, aren't necessarily active in the issue queue, but right now it would be hard. So
I have enough with my other project, I guess, right now. See how to get that going.
Well, that's fair. We've had pretty good participation. We've had 25 people participate. And I found the results to be interesting. So why don't we, so we're down to limited time, and we had Sarvashri had something to talk about. And Sarvashri, did you want to summarize?
Yeah, I sent it to you, and I'll just
Right.
read it out. Basically, what I'm looking at doing is WordPress is popular because people can go to WordPress and they can find a distribution or a theme that addresses common website developments, right? And there was a thing in Drupal 7. There were distributions of Drupal 7 that were sort of ready to wear, kinds of, to use Luke's term, that people could download, and they would have something they could just modify and it would be ready to go for a particular genre. I was thinking of collecting a list of the ones in WordPress, a list of the ones in Drupal 7, maybe some other list. Look at the popular things people are trying to do with websites and take each one of those and create a backdrop version of it. And in creating that backdrop version of it, use that as an instructional module for how to use Backdrop, so that people could see how a website was built. If they want to use that distribution, then they could see how that one was built, and then they would know how it works. And if they want to modify it, then they would be already trained in how that website was generated, and they would be able to create additions to it or customize it as they wish. So it would be something that would attract a lot of new users to have a website that was ready to go right away, and they would know how it was made in Backdrop, and then they would be able to customize it because they can see how it was made, and then they understand how Backdrop works a lot better. So that's my idea, and we, I guess, could start with a list of distributions that are used a lot in WordPress or used a lot in Drupal or any other CMS for that matter. And what are people trying to do? And can we create a shortcut for those people to get started with Backdrop? That would be a wonderful way to get people going.
I want to just cut you off because I'm worried I won't get a chance to say how much I love that idea. I mean, that is, that is, I feel like exactly what kind of the ready to wear initiative has led to is the thing that's missing from my mind is how to use the tools that are available to actually get stuff done.
Right.
And it would just be super useful. And I found this, you know, in my days of building websites with all sorts of technologies, that there's this giant point where you go from like the instructional out of the box manuals, here's how you do things, till you like your first real project. And when you get to your first real project, you see all sorts of stuff that nobody ever talks about. And you know, it'd be super useful to just have these things be like, here's what a working website looks like, rip it apart, piece it together, see what you think.
So
You know,
how do we make this happen?
Well, what I was suggesting was that first we come up with a list, then we assign one at a time to whoever can start with it, and that person grabs a newbie to go along with them as they look at that distribution and decide how they want to build it in Backdrop, and then build it with that newbie watching, because a newbie is going to have questions that an experienced developer is not going to come up with. They won't even understand probably how a newbie thinks, even, because you already know how to do things. But a person new to Backdrop or new to creating websites generally needs those questions answered.
I think it's hard to find. I think it's hard to find newbies is going to be the thing. I mean, maybe we should solicit for them, like have a field somewhere or an outreach or something. Say, you know,
Yeah, we could have
specifically
something.
like that. Like
Yeah, we could list those distributions somewhere and say, who would like to participate in seeing how this is built with Backdrop? Especially someone new to Backdrop or new to web page development generally. We want somebody who would ask all the unknown questions, unanticipated questions, to go along with us as we recreate it. And so, and then just do it in Zoom and record it as you go along. It doesn't have to be that sophisticated a presentation. Just you have one experienced developer, one newbie person, and you have the website to look at on the WordPress site or on the Drupal 7 site. You know, you see how it's written up, what it does, and then we create it in Backdrop to exceed the development that was done in those. You know, because people would get, say if they get a WordPress website going, or they get it, then they realize, oh, but yeah, it won't do what I want to do. I want to add this other thing. And wait a minute, WordPress doesn't make that very easy to do, or it's expensive to do, or they're going to have to hire somebody to do it in WordPress because it's not easy enough to be able to do it. Whereas Backdrop has other tools that would make those kinds of additions easier. It's more extensible.
Mm-hmm.
And those things could be drawn from how it was done in Drupal 7, because a lot of the modules in Drupal 7 are either already ready for Backdrop or could be made available for Backdrop for that particular distribution. So creating a group of distributions that have the development of how we created it, you know, and how, you know, that's going to be teaching how Backdrop is used. You know, I've gone through the Backdrop user manual, And you learn how to do something, but you don't understand why you're doing it. You would never think of doing something more than one way. All kind of ways to do things. You don't have a list of all the modules there as you're going through the learning of Backdrop. You don't know what modules can do, which ones you might choose, and why you might choose them. All that sort of thing is in the heads of good developers, experienced developers, that a new person is not going to know. I don't know those things.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you're exactly right. If to actually get this to happen though, I think you don't want to front load that much effort. Like creating a library of distributions is a big lift, and probably I think we can actually get into the mechanism of actually the part that you're focusing on of helping people without that. You really just need the people and the problem, and then you can try to
yeah,
solve it.
maybe there would be 10 distributions that we would have that are used right off the bat by lots and lots of people.
Sarvashtra, can I jump on though that you throw out 10 distributions could be a year's worth of work.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is that and maybe we're using the term differently. A distribution for me is like a prepackaged bundle that someone can just download and use. And while that would be great, that's also a lot of work. I think a first step might be to think about it less as a distribution and more as like a template or a case study where we walk. I mean,
I would say user story.
Sure,
Yeah.
user story, but there are use cases that fit your model that don't require a distribution. Like everything's in core. It's not about creating a new distribution. It's about giving people instructions on how to use core to do it. So what I would suggest is that the first step to make this how do we make this manageable? Well, let's just come up with one good user story or case study, whichever term we want to use, and kind of describe it. And then I think we could do something like what you're talking about. I think the first blocker to this is getting, one good example, or if you want to do a couple,
Maybe three. Let's say
do
three.
three. I mean, I would shoot for implementing one first, but if we define three of them, then we could pick the best one. And
I can throw out.
And the goal would be to do all three of them, but I'm just saying, let's make an achievable goal of getting one done
Well,
first.
we could even make a list of 12 if we wanted to, but have something to start with that would get people started, and then pick the ones, let people choose which one do you want next, and do that over a year's time.
I'm dying to interject this, so I'll first over the Joomla out of the box comes with just this. It comes with, if you don't know what you're doing here, and it has like 3 or 4 or 5 like really nicely developed example sites that's just out of the box. So along with that, I suggest just downloading that, looking at that to see what they did, because it's ripe for the copying.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
my thought on that was that what Tim said before, distribution is like a module or a theme. It will require someone to maintain it, update any libraries that it has, or included versions of included modules, which is a lot of overhead for the community, whoever individuals or groups take on that. Whereas if we find a way to make, basically we already have tutorials, because like 90%, if not more, of the tutorials that apply for Drupal 7 apply for Backdrop. And it's even easier for Backdrop. So what we need to do is find a way, and this is what Recipes is trying to do, to automate that or script it, and then provide scripts that people can somehow input into the Backdrop interface, and then Backdrop does the rest, downloads the modules they need, applies some basic configuration that can be tweaked. It's not locked, right? After that, and so that it's a shortcut. In other words, it downloads everything that you need. It basically, if you take a blog article that says, this is my favorite use case, convert your site to be multilingual, right? It basically takes that article, reads it step by step, and provides wizard-like sort of like checkbox ticking. Yep, I want to turn my site multilingual. Yep, I want to enable these languages. Yep, I want to enable these content types to be multilingual. That's it, done. So if we manage to get to that space where that is possible, like converting use cases or tutorials into wizards that people can run, and then Backdrop does all the background all the manual work. That'd be great. That's my vision for recipes.
Well, the idea here is to make shortcut for people and to make it easy.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
however you would do that, whether it turns out to be a distribution, if distributions are too much to try to do, then we could start with a shortcut system and then later turn it into a distribution.
So Vashri, but I'm confused because your whole point about sitting down with a newbie or a beginner, that's a sort of a creating a documentation approach. Creating a distribution is a technical approach. And sure, you could do both, but I think both are legitimate on their own. And what I read into your original discussion was the focus was on the recording of the training, right?
Right,
That this was
recording of the training.
creating a good video tutorial on how to do this. And that doesn't require any technical, that doesn't require recipes or distribution or anything. We could do that today.
It just requires customers.
Right.
If you can find somebody that wants to buy that, we can sell it, and then out of that, I mean the beauty of things like distribution is it scales well. So like when you're looking for the first few, then you don't really want to create stuff ahead of time for that. You just want to like dive in and get it done. And then when we need 1,000 of them, then you create distribution.
Okay. You probably know better than I do what is easy to do and what is not so easy to do. Some websites are pretty easy to set up, I think, for simple use cases, right?
Mhm.
So maybe you do a few of those sorts of things with a newbie, creating simple websites.
Mhm.
And then I like this idea of looking what Joomla has done and doing some simple things like what they did. Just what are people looking for, and how can we address the need of people to have a good website that's expandable later? Because a backdrop is more powerful than most other CMSs and gives opportunities for expansion that would be difficult to do later in some other CMSs. So we want to start people with an option that gives them expansion possibilities later on, and that's a good selling point for Backdrop.
Okay. I should point out we're at over time.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think whichever direction we go, the first step here would be to actually map out what some of these would look like, whether it's a training or a distribution. And so if somebody has the, and Sarvashri, I don't know if that's something you think you could work a little bit on, would be to sort of map out what those case studies are or user stories are that we would be working on.
Luke, do you have a list of the ones with Joomla? Could you grab those?
Let's connect offline, and I think Sarvashri, you and me together can
Yeah,
make headway.
I'll be happy to do that. Let's do that.
All right.
Perfect. Great. Good luck. Anything else for this meeting, or should we wrap it up and move on to the dev meeting? Do we have other people showing up? Yep. Okay, let's wrap this up. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.